Hello and welcome to Gooners in the USA. I try and do something different every time. It gets
but we're
boring.
running out of things to do, I think, at this point.
I know.
And you sound as tired as I feel right now.
I was going to say, you keep napping. This is the second day in a row I've gotten a message from you saying that you are ready to just woke up from a nap. Do you have low T?
I certainly don't have low T because the things that happened during the nap would prove that otherwise. But yeah, I don't sleep well. I'm just obsessing over Arsenal and the podcast. So this weekend, I'm tired because I went frickin' hard like a 18-year-old this weekend. 3 days in a row partying with Gooners from all over Virginia and DC.
Like it.
I mean, as bad as I'm feeling right now, it's from a wonderful time put together by the Virginia Beach Gooners.
Making memories, man. Making memories.
Yeah, absolutely. For the third annual Virginia's for Gooners meetup, reunited with a bunch of great people, had a couple beers over 3 days, and we'll talk about the greatest part in a minute. But let's introduce our guest. You've heard him so far already. Andy, we're breaking another duck today.
We are.
We keep breaking ducks with our guests, and today we have on with us someone who, when I joined Twitter personally, which is a few years before we started doing the podcast, and I tweeted under the podcast account, his was one of the first Arsenal-related names I remember seeing on Twitter. And that was back when he only had like 4 million followers. Now I think it's like up to 79.2 million. Is that right, Jeff?
No. You know what? I definitely couldn't cope with the 100. I think it was 150. It's gone down to 140,000 now. I've lost a bit of clout, unfortunately, mate.
Well, you're just right below Justin Bieber, I think, on the Twitter list. But welcome, Jeff Arsenal, to the pod.
Thank you very much.
Now, I've been blindsided and proven wrong by this once with one of our mates last year who we had on the pod last season, but I'm going to assume that Arsenal is not your actual last name then.
No, definitely not my last name. It's just Jeff Arsenal, though, mate. Everyone knows me as Jeff Arsenal in the community. That's the main thing.
Because that would be pretty...
awesome.
Yeah, that would be pretty.
It would be awesome.
Awesome, it would be awesome. You know what? I would like to change it to Jeff Arsenal, but my children, they're old now, but they wouldn't have it. They think I was an idiot. Well, although they are both Arsenal supporters, so you know.
Well, it's not too late to change your name. I mean, I don't know what the process is over there, but over here it's fairly easy.
Listen, there's people over here changing everything nowadays, man. So changing the name is easy.
So if you listen to the recent ABW special, Who Are ABW, you can hear a lot more about Jeff's long and storied history as a Gooner. I mean, to sum it up, you were basically born into it, never really had a choice, right?
Correct, yeah, no choice at all. My father met my mother, who had 7 brothers. They lived in North London, only maybe 300-400 metres away from Highbury, the North Bank. And you know what happens? You go over your nans every weekend to see them, and I used to hang around with my elder uncles, and they was all Arsenal fans. I really didn't have a choice, and you know what? I was really, really lucky because it was about that time in 1971 that I really started supporting Arsenal, and we won the double that year. So it was a nice, it was a nice introduction to them. It was brilliant.
Yeah, that'll keep you involved, I guess. So tell us how you started kind of on Twitter. I noticed your Twitter profile says 2011. I mean, that's obviously how I became aware of you. I'm guessing that might have something to do with how ABW became aware of you. But just kind of what was your strategy going in? Were you looking to build up a big following or just kind of chat with a few people and see what happened?
Just to go on and talk to just other people. I think a friend of mine who was on Twitter, he said, "Oh, Jeff, you should go on it. You know, you're Arsenal mad. There's a load of other people on there, a bunch of guys that are Arsenal mad as well. Why don't you have a go?" So, I opened it up. And I'm a little bit of a technophobe. I didn't really know what I was doing at first. And of course you go on there and I was more or less talking to myself, And then,
doing.
Yeah. But then obviously I've been to Arsenal for a long, long time, and I played professional football myself, so I had a few contacts from back in the day, and continued those contacts, and I'd get bits of information that I was really interested in, and I would just put it on Twitter because it excited me at the time. Like teen Yeah, the team news and, who was injured, who wasn't injured, all bits of, and obviously transfers was the main thing. I broke a 2 or 3 major transfers. Mesut Ozil was one of them. And I just put bits and pieces out there, that the information that I was given, and then it just escalated into all these people started following me, and you get into much more conversations. In the main, Twitter's a brilliant place, but through that time it really educated me with regard to you got some idiots on Twitter, mate, believe me.
Everyone and their mother, every single animal and mole and all of that seem to now be breaking transfers. I mean, I've noticed you don't really seem to do that much anymore, but I mean, what do you think of the whole movement towards, everyone just guessing what's going on and acting like they know?
Yeah, well, that's right. Listen, each to their own. They've got to do what they've got to do. I suppose maybe people had strategies to try and gain followers for whatever reason. I don't know. There's no gain out of it. You can't. I mean, it's not as if I could take my Twitter account into the bank manager and say, listen, I want to sell this, or can you give me something for this Twitter account? It's not worth anything really to me. I mean, you do with a lot of followers comes. You just get your inbox gets filled up with nonsense, but. I mean, it's worked in my favour because I'm in corporate hospitality. I have corporate stuff at Arsenal. So if I've got anything over, I can just slip it on there, offer it out, and generally, it works well for me. So it has worked for me in the long run, but that wasn't the strategy at first. It was just to go on and talk to people, which has been really good.
Well, and here we are. So, like I said before, you can be heard every once in a while on the Bergkamp Wonderland Pod, which makes you the 5th current member of ABW to appear with us. So, how did you get locked in with that lot?
You know what? I've been there from the start. I was one of the founder boys that was on the first podcast with regard to ABW. We first. I was invited by Danny. On the old podcast, Steve Ball, correct? Yeah, and I don't know. I think I had half a dozen appearances on there when I was in my pomp on Twitter, releasing bits and pieces. So they come across me. They wanted to get me on there just for my information. It's not for me good looks or anything like that. Don't worry. And so then I joined. And I love Arsenal, and I just love talking about Arsenal, and I love talking about football. So it was a good thing for me. I'd go on there, jump on there. We'd have an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it was like just talking to guys in the pub, just like what we're doing here right now, And it continued from there. And I don't know. I think I'm maybe the second highest podcast out of that ABW group,
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's certainly how I became in contact with you for the purposes of getting you on here, was through those guys as well. So absolutely loved a lot of those guys. I mean, they've been wonderful to us. So, and it's good to have you with us on a 2-win week, a 5-win month. And,
wow. Yeah.
And, let's roll into the main part of the podcast after I take just a minute for the final time this season, to chat about Gooners versus Cancer. And I just I've been really emotional the last couple of days, in large part because I've had a good amount of alcohol in my system, but also, we closed down the 2018 campaign, and we ended up with 80 different donors, individuals giving anywhere from $2 to over $250, supporters clubs and fellow podcasters like ABW and Same Old Arsenal doing pop-up fundraisers and collecting triple-digit donations from their members. And Alan Smith jumped in and provided us with a couple of personally signed books to go out and attract some nice donations, which worked and helped us. And then this Saturday, my God, Virginia Beach Gooners at that event raised money, and to all the people that donated events to be auctioned off and to be raffled off to help raise money, they shocked me on Sunday afternoon with a total of $1,025 to donate to Gooners versus Cancer. So we ended up smashing through the $4,000 mark and raised about $4,200 this year. And it was just kind of an event, this thing that I started doing, having no idea how to raise any money, but just wanted to leverage our connections through Arsenal and the generosity of Gooners. And the early returns from this season are that it's a great thing to do. I am most certainly going to look next year to to gather some additional perks and talk to some additional people to raise even more money next year, and maybe we turn this into a big deal. But I wanted to thank everybody, and also Andy, to thank you for allowing me to kind of, I mean, not that it's a selfish thing, but it is a very personal thing to me that I was doing, and you've always welcomed me to talk about it on the website, to tweet about it, and you've even encouraged people to donate, and I just love you for that, man.
Well, I think everyone's been affected by cancer, and so it's a great thing, and I think we did a little reach out last year, didn't we? And this year we really did a big push.
Yeah, I mean, I just, the way it worked out last year is I had a lot going on. It didn't really make too much of a concerted effort. And when you do that, you really have to keep putting the word out there to the point where people are like, I would be annoyed by this, except I understand it's for a good charity, so totally. I'll let it go. Because that's, you have to, and that's how it gains traction, and then it kind of takes on a life of its own. So I'm interested in seeing what happens next year, but thanks for that. And I think you're bringing back a feature of the podcast this week that we haven't done for a while. Maybe not.
I am. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I saw it in the news and I was like, hey, this could be funny. So, question of the week.
Jeff, we used to have a question of the week before we would start rolling into the games, and the question of the week is never actually a serious question.
No. And it usually just resulted in me answering with Vinnie Jones, but they're making...
Funny you should say that.
They are making a Space Jam 2. And for those who don't know, Space Jam was a cartoon movie back in the 90s featuring Michael Jordan and I think Bugs Bunny, but they're replacing Michael Jordan with LeBron James. And I was going to ask the two of you, if you had to make this movie, but you had to replace Michael Jordan with a football player, who would it be? And Mike, I'll go to you first because you've seen the question. We'll let Jeff take a moment to think about it.
Okay. Not only have I seen the question, but I've seen and listened to you for a few years. And first of all, is the premise of the question that everyone's watched Space Jam 1? Because, I mean, in 1996, I don't know what you were up to, but I had a ton of better things to do than go to animated movies with Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny in it.
Well, I can't say that I saw the movie in the movie theater, but I'm a lot younger than you, so I do recount that.
Tons younger. I love how it's a lot right now.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So I read up on the plot, quote unquote plot,
which
of
I
Space
didn't
Jam 1.
do.
And when I was done rolling my eyes and doing that hand over the face emoji thing that I type into the keyboard all the time, I decided to steal your thunder, and my answer is Vinnie Jones.
You son of a bitch.
Apparently, we've got one Space Jam already where the protagonist comes in and saves the day and wins an intergalactic basketball game for his team. I don't think we need another one. So my idea for Space Jam 2 is dude just breaks everyone's legs and headbutts all the other players into submission, and it's like a cross between Space Jam and The Purge. And I just wanted to hear your squealing when I use your answer for myself. Tell me you didn't go with Vinnie Jones also, though.
I didn't, actually. I was thinking that the only way you could make an appropriate movie with a superstar of the sport is to go with the biggest ego in the room. And so I think the only person that could really fill those shoes is Nicholas Bentner.
Yeah, in Space Jam. We've seen the Space Jammies already. So.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff, who are you answering for this ridiculous question?
You know what? I don't even know what Space Jam 2 is. I don't know what I was doing, most probably globetrotting around dancing somewhere back in 1992 or 93 or whenever it was, right? But you know what? I'd like to. You know what? It sounds good, and I'd stick Danny the GFP in that with his wheelchair. He'd be rolling around all over the place, man. I tell you.
He's technically a footballer.
Would he be rolling around the place, or would he be floating? Because it is in space.
In space,
I've never seen it. I've never seen it. So.
He might have all his faculties back in space.
That's true.
Yeah,
so Jeff wins.
Yeah, go on. I'll leave that with Danny the GFP. Put him in space, man.
And he'd just be there bathing with all the other basketball players, and I mean it would be a very romantic movie. It'd be like a rom-com, if you will. All right. So speaking of romantic, Vorskla came to town from bumfuck Ukraine. Not even like I looked at possibly traveling there if we had gotten them in match day 4 when I'm going to be over. and it wasn't looking very promising. They are like a 4-hour train ride with goats and various animals from Kiev, which is already not the easiest place for an American to get to. So I was very, very pleased that we're going to Lisbon instead. But so Vorskla came to us, and I'm just going to say it. I watched it. I enjoyed it. Then I did a podcast on Friday. Then I destroyed my liver for 3 straight days, and I have very little memory of any of the details of this game now. But I do have a couple of takeaways to discuss and ask you guys about. And then we'll move on to Everton, which is the more recent of our conquests. First of all, the lineup was stronger than expected to me. I mean, he made 8 changes, but it still felt like a relatively first 11 side as opposed to in years past where, a changed 11 would mean, people we had literally never even heard of anymore. And, it just goes to show our depth has really kicked it up a notch in the last few years. But having Aubameyang start up top in ultimately a 3-game week for him, I think was a brilliant move, and it paid the exact dividends it was meant to, which is to get him back in the goals. So, Jeff, when you saw how we started out on this game, when a lot of people probably thought we'd see more of our double-barreled youngsters on the pitch, what was your reaction?
Well, you know what? I'm lucky enough, really, really fortunate enough to go every single home game and a few away games, all the London away games and maybe 1 or 2 in the Midlands, if we play up there. And you know what? You're right, Vorskla. I'd never heard of them before, and to be honest with you, they look like they picked up half a dozen players at Finsbury Park Station on the way through. They was that poor. And what we normally see is, you're correct, Mike. We normally see a few of the young kids come through, and I used to like going to those games because of that reason. When I was a kid, I used to go to the reserve games. It was very local, so you could just go in there, you could watch the game for free, and see the reserve team players coming through. But you can't do that. You can do it now, but they play in different places and stuff like that. But, the Vorskla game was, I just enjoy watching the games. Even sometimes when we're up against it and we're not playing very, very well, I always seem to, I enjoy it. I try and enjoy the experience of it all. And I was pleased that he put a strong team out. And because it means that he's taken the competition serious. I think he's won it 2 or 3 times before, hasn't he? He's obviously, I think he's doing the right thing, and maybe aiming that as his first choice this year. Seriously, I don't think we've got too much chance to win the Premier League. I'd be mad to believe that we could. So going for the Europa League is a great thing to obviously, because we could then get entry into the Champions League if we go on and win it. So it's a good thing, and I was pleased to see a decent strength side go out there in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah, and Andy, he's by he I mean Emery, I think, come out today in his press conference about the Carabao Cup and given a sense of his strategy in the Carabao Cup, which is coming up this week. But you get a sense that the Europa League is as important to him as the Premier League is at this point. And did Thursday give you any of a headlight on what we're going to be seeing for the rest of the time?
Well, yeah, he's had such success in the Europa League, and I think so much was kind of discussed and highlighted when we had signed him that it's a competition I feel like he thinks can get Arsenal back on track in winning ways, and as Jeff said, it's a great route to get into the Champions League, and I think based off of what we've seen thus far in the league, we have a great chance to break top 4. But he also made the comment a couple weeks ago that the entire squad is still trying to learn and implement and embed this system that we're seeing him introduce. And so, I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow we see a couple of the bigger names in the squad, and we see some of these lineups continue to happen against weaker sides because they are trying to learn a new system. But as you had said, Mike, the best thing that we could have gotten from that match was Aubameyang scoring goals again, because he needed some confidence boosting, and it did exactly that. And I also think that it pinpoints to Lacazette, like, hey, you're on fire, you're playing well. And so you're our main go-to guy up front right now. So it kind of works both ways. He's keeping both strikers happy, which is great.
and I think they want to be happy, and they are happy with each other. So, I mean, you really have to go a long way to screw that up if you're Emery.
And it helps when your strikers seem to be friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, as we have in almost every game this season, we're seeing tons of Ruth at the end of the game. Not ruthless at all in that one, and just kind of switched off after we were up 4-0. And if you were looking for something to feel shitty about in that game, there you go. But here's my thing though. Right now, I have total faith in the dynamic of the coaching and the player leadership and the messaging on this team. That I do think that they feel shitty about that. I don't think it gets glossed over just because we won the game and got the 3 points in the group. And I think some of the guilty parties, if you want to talk about guilty parties of how those goals were allowed, maybe they would have been on the bench already on Sunday instead of starting to begin with. But after that, they definitely weren't on the pitch from the go. And I'm talking about Guendouzi and Lichtsteiner. Not that they had awful games, but I think that they obviously made errors at the end and deficiencies that I think led to some of the shutting off. And if there's ever a time to switch off where you're not going to get hurt by it, but definitely use it to to learn and to have teaching moments that are actually going to be worked on during the week. That was it, I guess. So I am encouraged by the fact that we got that out of the way, and I don't expect to see that kind of shutting off in Baku in the next game. So
yeah.
And then fortunately, I think a lot was learned. I mean, Sunday, as we'll find out, we didn't shut off at the end of the game. So, Andy, anything we learned from Leno from this game? Because to me, I mean, he didn't really have a whole lot of shots to defend, and of the two really that he did, both went in the back of the net. One of them looked a little savable, but I mean, I didn't notice his play from the back at all, which I think is a testament to the fact that he's not nervy back there. Because normally I'm just throwing up in my mouth every time the pass goes back to the keeper. So, I mean, as a goaltender, did we learn anything about him?
I don't think so. Unfortunately, I think the two worst things for a keeper is to be played a ball when you're under pressure already, and we see that a couple times with Jack from a few of the defenders. But with Leno, we were on the front foot so often he didn't get involved in the game with his feet. The second thing you hate is when a defender fucks up and you're 18 or 25 yards out from goal and you're giving someone a free shot. And that's what I feel happened with Leno. Maybe one of them could have been saved, but come on. I mean, you're giving someone a point blank shot at goal. You're at odds. You're gonna let one or two of them in. So I don't think we've seen enough from him yet. Again, he's playing in his first match. He's got to be nervous. So I don't think we saw anything from him. We weren't able to learn anything. I think he's going to be a good keeper. But the one great thing I love about this, Mike, is Czech's playing better, as we saw in Everton, each week. And while his foot game isn't the best, we're seeing a better Czech than we saw last season. And so
he should change his name to Better Czech instead of Better Czech.
Seriously. So with anything, Leno has come in and he's making Czech raise his game, and I think that's the best thing, competition. We never really saw that under Arsene. It was kind of first name on the team sheet, and Leno is proving to be a decisive factor in that. But I don't think we saw enough. I wonder tomorrow if he gets the start or if we see Martinez in there. It's going to be interesting.
That's what I was going to ask, Jeff. I mean, he did comment about his goaltenders, and specifically mentioned we have 3 good goaltenders, not 2. Is Leno our cup keeper right now, or is he not even going to get every cup game, you think?
Well, like under Arsene, he definitely would be the cup keeper, but you don't know what system or what route Unai Emery is going to go with it. With Leno, he looks very good on the ball, and with the system that Emery wants to play, he would be ideal, because if you're going to play that system where you're playing it out at the back, you need to be very, very good on the ball. Now, whether or not we saw enough, he looks good on the ball, but shot stopping and stuff like that, we haven't seen nothing. I mean, he barely had anything to do in the game apart from pick the ball out of the net twice, which was terrible. I was gutted on the night, because we do need clean sheets, We definitely do need clean sheets, and we played against a team there that was very, very poor, and we conceded 2 goals. And on another night, it would have been a little bit more difficult for us.
And I just think it was kind of the old habits dying hard as far as shutting off. I mean, the game was over, but a lesser opponent, a different game, a different level of competition, and that game wouldn't have been over. I mean, it's not like we've never capitulated from a 4-0 position before. So
yeah, that's true.
And the problem is, Vorskla, you're not going to want that to happen.
The problem is when you switch off like that, you know, and all of a sudden if they'd have got a third goal, then we've got to try and switch back on again, and you can't do it. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do, you know. When 3 or 4 players switch off and they can feel it all around the pitch. Oh yeah, we've won this now. We're just, you know, we'll do a few coffee house tricks and just see the time out. And all of a sudden they get a couple of goals back. Then you're under pressure. And it was really disappointing that they conceded those 2 goals, you know.
Well, it's something they have to learn from, and I don't think we'll see that again in our next situation like that. So, on to Everton, Andy.
Yes, excellent. Little family rivalry for me, so that was great to see us get the 3 points.
What, you and Theo? We get to welcome back our favorite player of all time, Jeff, Theo Walcott, to the Emirates.
Yeah, it was quite funny as it happens.
He got a good reception. It appeared on TV.
Oh yeah, Jeff, you were there. What was the kind of when he was introduced, when he came off? I think he was substituted off in the, you know.
Yeah, he got a great reception at the start. You know, and even during the game, well, he kept on fucking up. So it was like playing for an Arsenal. Yeah, it was like, you know, it was comedic in the stands. There's a few guys that around me didn't like him and thought he was a waste of time when he was at Arsenal. So they was loving it, and the jokes that they was cracking. You know, when he's running the ball out the pitch and stuff like that, it was really, really funny. It was very, very funny.
I mean,
but,
he pulled out all of his old tricks. It was like, I mean, he was offsides all the time. He shot the ball directly at our keeper. Yeah. And it's nice to know that you can count on some things in life.
Yeah, he could have been in a red shirt, man. Honestly, he really could have been in a red shirt. You know, it was very similar.
I got confused every time I saw Aubameyang because I saw red number 14 and I was like, but wait, this guy's actually playing well.
Yeah.
So we jump in with Lacazette and Aubameyang scoring in the space of 3 minutes to flatten Everton and give Arsenal a 4th consecutive win in the league. Mike, it was a little bit reminiscent of the last couple games we've played. The majority of chances in the first half fell to Everton. Richarlison was denied by a great save from Czech. Then he saw himself make a brilliant run and not get on the end of a ball. Czech saved us in the first half, and I feel like this is the same story. Against better teams, we could have easily been down 2 or 3-1 at half, and we're getting lucky. And I don't know if I don't want to say we're starting off slow, but we're just defensively still kind of lacking.
Well, you don't want to say it, but I'll be happy to say it. We're starting off slow in some of these games, and you know, we have an excellent user question later in the pod from somebody about this exact dynamic. But so I don't want to talk too much about first half versus second half. But we do seem to be getting quite good at this whole Muhammad Ali kind of rope-a-dope strategy, where we just kind of come out and let the other team give us their best shot. We take it, hopefully without costing us. And then we start picking them apart a little bit from there. I mean, it's like a counterattack strategy, but as a game strategy, not just a tactic. So it's that kind of strategy worked pretty well for Ali, but I don't think that's really the best way to go about winning a Premier League. So, it's the beauty of the flat track that we're in the middle of right now. Mm-hmm. These 8 games that we talked about. Where, really there are teams that we should be beating. You've got Everton, you've got Watford, who's playing really well, but these are teams we should be beating. And so far we have. And it allows us to kind of have some success while learning. And, I don't think for a second that the end game success in this case, like I said before, will gloss over the mistakes, to where, we're just going to win easy games and then get slaughtered when we play top 4 teams, like maybe a few seasons ago we would have seen. Not with the level of detail that this coaching staff has, but Jeff, I mean, we've been suspect to having to play catch up a lot in the last few games, and the only reason we didn't in this one, was down to one Petr Cech.
Yeah, true. You mentioned Petr Cech. He's, in my opinion, he is in his best form in an Arsenal jersey. He really is. He's having his best start, and he's been really, really good this season.
Which is ironic because he's being asked to do something outside his normal expertise and
playing
out of his mind while doing it.
This is what I'm going to get onto. But Arsenal, as I see them this season, are not really no different to what I see last season. The only difference I do see is we've put more pressure on ourselves by asking Petr Cech to play out like a midfield player at the back when he really isn't capable of doing it. It's not his fault. It's when his generation of goalkeepers, when they was coming up, they didn't have to kick them pass the ball that much. So it's not his fault. And he hasn't done too bad, but you've seen the errors that he has made, and we've been lucky in the errors that he has made. And you do that against a top team, and you are definitely going to get punished. So Unai Emery, he's come in and he's obviously changed the system, and I've got no problem, pardon me, with the system, as long as you've got the personnel. And I really don't think that we have the personnel, because if you're going to play that high press, most of the time, when the opposition have got the ball in their half, we're going to press really, really high, and our back four are touching the halfway line almost. Well, that leaves a great big hole behind you. And if you haven't got centre backs or defenders that are really, really fast, a long diagonal ball, which is going to wipe them straight out. Now, like I say, you'll be okay against the teams that we've played recently. Because we generally get away with it. Against a top team, or you get to the later stages of European competitions, you're going to get found out. So that's my problem. I don't think I know what he wants to do, and I can see what he wants to do, but we unfortunately at the moment haven't got the personnel for him to do that. So I just hope that we can somehow find a compromise, and I think I'm seeing a little bit of a compromise. I don't think they was playing it out. They didn't play it out at the weekend or a Thursday night as much as they had done in the previous 3 or 4 games, And maybe he's given Cech or the goalkeeper an option, if you feel uncomfortable with it, just ping it out, ping it up forward or something like that. Because
did he punt the ball long once on Sunday? Like I was trying to remember how many times I've seen him do that this entire season.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, definitely did. I noticed it because it's something I was looking at, But it starts from the front. You're going to have to get people that are really, really fit, because you can't do it for 90 minutes. There's no way in the world. There's no team that can do it for 90 minutes. That high press, you can do it, but you can only do it for a certain amount of time. And unfortunately, it's got to a situation where you've got 2 players in Mesut Ozil and Aaron Ramsey. I'm not sure they know what they're doing. I'm not sure they really know when to press and not to press, and which one presses and which one don't. And we've got to find a way to get the best out of Mesut Ozil, because he looks lost at the moment.
Yeah, and your comments are interesting, and it brings up something that we had a bit of a debate about, or a question about, in the last couple pods, which is, if you have a new coaching staff that's trying to basically overhaul the entire system in the way of playing for the team, you have to assume that, and I keep pointing to Liverpool as an example, although they haven't won anything yet. They're clearly a team on the rise. And they're a team on the rise because of the system, in my opinion, of the coach and the people that they've gotten over a 3 or 4 year period to play that system. So here we are in season 1 of a new system. If you're the coach of the team, do you say, okay, well, these players aren't really going to be able to play my system, so I need to change my system to cater the players? Or do you push forward with it knowing that you might not reach the pinnacle of what you could possibly reach this season, but you're getting the rest of the guys that are going to be around for a long time, really, really well trained in a system that you're just going to start adding pieces to over 3 or 4 transfer windows, and then it all clicks with the right personnel. I mean, what you do about that in the early stages is, I guess, up for debate. How much should Emery be changing the system, or how much should he just be kind of going through some growing pains while he identifies who he needs to replace and who he needs to keep?
Well, he's got a system. It's worked for him before. He's been successful. He's won trophies. So he's thinking, listen, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So he's gone into a club, which he had to do the last two clubs, and then maybe he's changed their system around and he went through it. He's obviously going to assess. This first season, I think he's going to get a bye. I think he'll get no one's going to be really calling him out too much because he can go back and say, listen, well, the system's completely different now. I need 2 or 3 transfer windows to get my players in, blah-de-blah-de-blah. But some of those players he'll have a look at, and some will buy into it. They'll like it, and they'll be capable of having a go and changing the way they play, and some won't. And over the course of that time, he'll just pick and choose, which guys do, which guys don't. And over the 2 or 3 windows that I think he'll definitely need, you'll see a better picture and the type of team that he wants and the type of players that he wants. And it's going to be really interesting. I'm very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, I want to quickly go to you on the Nacho Monreal close range shot. I thought it was superbly saved by Jordan Pickford, and I just was curious, do you think a striker finishes that better? I'm not sure. I thought it was a hell of a save. I thought Nacho was in a great position, and it was a good strike.
Well, I'll be quick with this because my thoughts on this shot was that I think I was in the bathroom when he shot it. So what I was doing in there we'll keep confidential. But I have gone back and watched the replay actually. But Jeff, we've anointed Nacho Monreal as the rightful Ballon d'Or winner. I mean, for any other side, clearly he would be the first choice number 9. Yeah. You can't stop the guy. But I did see this shot, and the shot it drove it into the ground before going goalwards, and it wasn't a clean strike. But I mean, as far as Andy's question, if you remember the point in the game, is Pickford every bit of the world's greatest goalkeeper that Andy considers him? We know how much Andy loves Pickford, both for his 3 Lions conquests and just because he's English. But was it a good save, or was it just a shot that you kind of wish would have fallen to somebody else?
You know what? Sometimes I played up front as a striker, number 9, and sometimes you hit them too clean. Sometimes you can scuff it, and all of a sudden it sends the goalkeeper the wrong way. So it's almost as if he's all right. It wasn't absolutely clean, but sometimes it would have been better if he maybe, it just clipped off of his foot and went over the goalkeeper or something like that. And you know what? Once you're in front of goal like that, he's just aiming for the goal, and you hope for the best. And Pickford, he's a very, very good shot stopper. So, and his reactions are quite good. So maybe we was a little bit unlucky on that occasion. But Monreal, I agree with you. He's been, to be honest with you, in my opinion, Nacho Monreal has been our best pound for pound footballer for the last 3 or 4 years, all round.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think he had one bad season, the season before last, where really I think most of the year Iwobi and Welbeck were playing in front of him and giving him absolutely no support.
That's the problem.
But I mean, last season, so far this season, and really the one before that one season, he's been stellar.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's true.
He won the Gibbs battle, that was for sure. I think he was brought in to support Gibbs and make Gibbs surplus to requirements.
Yeah.
I was just really looking for a way to ring the bell again.
Out of nothing, we see Aaron Ramsey slide Lacazette through, and he just curls home a beautiful ball. A little bit lucky off the post. Easily, I think, easily a goal of the year contender just based off of where he received the ball and everything that was in front of him. But Jeff, I mean, what a strike. I mean, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was saying all through the match that he was very, very quiet, Lacazette. But it wasn't his fault. We wasn't getting the ball to him. Out of all our strikers, I think he's technically the best player. He's great. He's great on the ball. He's very tricky with the ball, and he can hold the ball up really, really well. The only thing he lacks is pace, that killer pace that obviously Aubameyang has. But in and around the box, if he gets a chance, 9 out of 10 times, he'll make the keeper work. Now, we don't see that. We didn't used to see that from Theo. We didn't really used to see that from a lot of our centre forwards in the past, but he will definitely make the keeper make a save, and that's the main thing. A top striker will always hit the target. And he is one of those guys. We've got to get him in the game and try and get him in the game inside the penalty area, in between the lines, and then he'll score a lot more goals.
Theo has the record, actually, for most shots saved by a goaltender who was in the middle of a nap.
Yeah.
Speaking of naps, that is a record that he doesn't like. But I mean, Lacazette's having a blinder of a season so far. I couldn't be happier for him, and hopefully, he also couldn't be happier, because last year he didn't always look so chuffed. Not when he was being taken out, not when he went through some goal droughts, and yesterday's goal, it was beautiful. Andy, did you see the fan video of the goal taken by our ginger fellow friend?
I did not, no.
Well, he took one from behind the goal, and then he ruined it by turning the camera on his celebrating mug. But I'll forgive him for that, because it's a great shot from behind the goal of that shot. As far as the goal of the year, I don't know about that, but if Salah can win the Puskas Award yesterday over some of the other options he was in competition with, then anything's possible, because that was a travesty. How Bale or Ronaldo didn't win that. But anyway, I digress. Ramsey's looking good. I mean, we're talking about Lacazette. Lacazette is looking good.
Absolutely. So let's go to the second goal, Mike. We're 3-on-3 in the final third. I think Ozil breaks into the box. I don't know why he can't shoot when he's in a shooting position. I really think that the guy would rather have an assist. But his intended pass goes to Aubameyang when it was supposed to be for Ramsey. Pickford's helpless. Aubameyang's probably 3 miles offside. How the assistant didn't catch that's beyond me. But nonetheless, it's 2-0. And I feel for Everton, but it's not like that was the goal that lost them the game.
I don't know. I mean, it clearly wasn't technically the goal that lost them the game, but first of all, people on life support all over the world were freaking out when the ball came to Rambo. But now they can breathe easier, I guess, if that's possible. Otherwise, maybe the machine will help them breathe easier. But here's a question. And again, I was a little off kilter during the game. I wasn't in my best attentive mode for multiple reasons. But when Rambo overran it, or the ball went behind him and he wasn't going to be able to put it towards the goal, did he intentionally backheel the ball to Alba to keep that run going? I mean, it didn't just go through his legs or go behind him.
No, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
He backheeled that ball to, yes, to an offside player. But he meant that, didn't he, Jeff?
He did mean it, yeah. You know what? He wasn't expecting Mesut Ozil to bottle it. It was so blatant that he should have had to. Oh yeah, I've got a problem with Mesut Ozil at the moment. I love him, believe me, I love him, but I just really don't think he's suited for the Premier League football. I think it's too fierce for him.
You and a few other, Jeff.
Yeah, but I've said it for a while now, and I was singing his praises when he first came to Arsenal, and I thought he was going to be brilliant, and you do see glimpses of brilliance from him, and there's no doubt he's a fantastically talented footballer, but he seems lost at the moment, and he seems lost, forlorn, and of confidence, and when there was three of them, it was three of them against the goalkeeper, more or less.
Oh, yeah.
And it's amazing how he should have just. The other two guys was just giving him an option, so the goalkeeper he had to stay in the middle of the goal, more or less. All Mesut had to do was just side foot it, pass it to either side, just pass it into the goal. He bottled it. And that's why Rambo, he was more or less too far ahead of the ball, so to speak, to get the pass. And the only way he could hook it was to, and lucky Aubameyang was there, because Rambo couldn't have done nothing else. He just tried to flick it towards the goal, and Aubameyang was there and blatantly offside. I've no idea what the linesman, do they call him linesman nowadays, or third or fourth official or whatever they call him? I fuck knows what he was doing, because it was so blatantly offside, and I did feel sorry for Everton for about 3 seconds,
You can't really do it for any longer than that.
Yeah.
We would be screaming bloody murder right now, though, if that happened. The referees are always against us. I already hear complaining about Mike Dean being the referee tomorrow against Brentford. But I mean that would have hurt if that was against us. So I might have felt sympathy for Everton for 4 seconds, Jeff. But
you know what though? It was a bit of a game changer because I'll tell you what it did. Well, obviously now we've got that 2-goal cushion, which is never enough for Arsenal usually. By the way, you know what I mean. Yeah. We normally need to go 4 or 5 up, and even then you're worried about it. But that give us a little bit of a cushion, and we could start relaxing a little bit, keep the ball, which is what Emery's type of teams do. They'll keep the ball and invite the press again, and then try and get in behind again. As you're going through the gears, but it gave us a little bit of breathing space, and it took it just took a little bit of the thingy off of Everton's game as well. So it did us a big favour.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't the game-winning goal, but it might have been the game-ending goal, and that hurts if it goes offside. Anyone, by the way, recall Aubameyang's first goal for Arsenal last year? He ran in behind. He was sent in by, I guess, Mkhitaryan, chipped the goalie. Yeah. Remember who was against and how offside, and whether he was offside for that one as well?
Was he offside?
He was marginally, possibly offside, not as obviously as this one, but there was a huge question as to whether he was offside, and it was also against Everton. So
that's right, yeah.
Everton in a 5-1 win. So
it was a brilliant finish, mind.
Oh, it was magical. It wet everybody's lips on what to expect from Aubameyang, but also a little possibly controversial. So with 10 minutes left, up 2-0, I committed the ultimate sin in the pub, which I just wasn't. I'm telling you, my head wasn't on straight yesterday or Sunday, of loudly asking and confirming in the pub, will this be our first clean sheet of the season? With 10 minutes still left in the game. I don't know what I was thinking. And this huge groan goes out, and then it's followed by, 40 people in the pub chanting, Feinberg fucked it up. Feinberg fucked it up, which, I completely deserved. But thankfully, even though I might have fucked it up, Arsenal did not fuck it up. And yes, there was the clean sheet for the first time this season since, unless you count the Lazio and Bournemouth games, which I don't really think we can. So, Andy, you're man of the match.
Easily, Czech. I thought in the first half he kept us in the game. He had a couple moments of brilliance in the second. Post-match we saw Unai say, I'm very happy with the goalkeeper and how the goalkeepers and how they're all working for us. I think Czech has a big experience, big quality. He started the preseason well, and I think he is in a performance level that we want. So I feel like that's basically Emery saying Czech's position to lose, and I don't think he's done anything in the past couple of weeks to dispel that. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And he's working in a system he's not comfortable in, Mike, and he's flourishing at the moment.
Yeah, I think so. Jeff, who would you name as your man of the match?
You know what, I think Andy said it all. I think I think he said it all. It was spot on with Petr Cech. I think he, like I said, I think he's playing his best football of saving lots of shots. He's always been a great shot stopper, but I think he maybe he looks a bit fitter this season. I don't know why, whether he's worked on it in pre-season or something like that. But long may it continue as well, because the Petr Cech we thought we was going to get. We thought he was going to save us, 12 points or something.
Right, John Terry
said that hasn't really seemed to happen, unfortunately. So hopefully this season he'll save us a few points, and I think he did the weekend.
He saved us at least 2, in my opinion, and I would have to name him the man of the match as well. I mean, there wasn't any. I mean, Lacazette had a good game. In the second half, there weren't too many ridiculously good performances. One person whose name we haven't mentioned at all, and I really don't know that we need to in this game, was Granit Xhaka. Finally, or Lucas Torreira. I mean, they started together for the first time. We didn't give up any goals. Can you look at that and say that's that's something we have to repeat and repeat and repeat, or was their performance just kind of average in this game? I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer because I was drunk.
No, no, you know what? I think, you know what it is. Personally, honestly, I don't. How I look at it is, I honestly don't think Granit Xhaka is good enough to play regularly in an Arsenal team that really pushes for the Premier League. I just don't think he's that player. I'm going to get a lot of stick for that, but I just don't. I think he's too ordinary. I don't think his passing as good as what it was made out to be. All right, listen, you can show me stats of his passing ability and everything else, and he's got the most passes here and the most passes there. But you know what? He's too ordinary for me. And he's not quick. He's not really quick across the pitch. He doesn't really tackle that well. And I just think we need a little bit more from an Arsenal central midfield player. Top teams have top players, and unfortunately, in my opinion, Granit Xhaka is not one of those. Torreira, listen, he seems like he's a proper defensive midfield player. He seems like he's aware, he can smell a little bit of danger. And what I liked about him at the weekend was that, normally. In an Arsene Wenger team, it was just more maybe all-out attack, and you would see, 10 players in the final third trying to get a goal when we're 2 or 3-0 up still, rather than let's be a little bit mindful. Don't let no team back in it. But with regards to Torreira, he was. Am I pronouncing that right? By the way, I'm not sure whether I'm even pronouncing. Yeah, well, Torreira. Yeah,
we know who you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. What I was looking at. He very, very rarely ventured past the centre circle, which is a good thing because, we need someone sitting in there. We definitely do need, if we're going to do that high pressing game, you need people that are, sitting back in there, they're mindful and they're someone that can smell danger. So, I'd give him a run now. I'd give him a run and see how we got on. But again, he's okay. His little tippy-tappy play, gets his foot in, which is good. He's very, very confident. And, if when push comes to shove, I think he's going to be one that will sit in there. He's lively. He can get across the pitch quite quickly. But again, he's quite an ordinary player. I don't think he's going to give you too much going forward, which is a good thing because we don't need that at the moment. We've got plenty of striking players.
Any rebuttal on the Xhaka situation? We know. Andy's
I'm not ready to throw the towel in yet. Let's just say that. But Mike, what I think is a great statistic is when Aubameyang and Lacazette have both scored in 3 of the last 5 Premier League games they've started together, and so
but they've each gotten a goal.
Yeah, and so what's really nice there is we're seeing 2 players we spent close to £100 million on finding the score sheet with each other, and I think there was a lot of debate when they were both signed is can they play together, and I think they're showing that answer is yes. And so, I think it's absolutely great. One thing I wanted to ask the two of you is Czech made some comments this week about Arsene and the new spirit around Arsenal, and I don't think it was a bash at Arsene. I think it was more truth. I think that the expectation of this team is different now, and that I think the spirit of his comments were, no one gets a spot on the team sheet. Everyone's got to work for getting into the starting 11, and I just wanted to hear kind of your thoughts on his comments. And so, Mike, I'll throw it to you. But what do you think?
I've got the quote here, and then I'm fascinated, obviously, to get Jeff's point of view on this because we'll get into it a bit here. But I believe the quote was that he said, "I would say the Arsenal way was more important than getting the points sometimes, and this is not sometimes how you win the league. Sometimes you need to make sure you win an ugly game when you're not playing completely well, but you just dig deep, close the back door, and win 1-0 no matter how. I think this is what we lacked since I arrived over the last few years." And then he goes on to talk about how the competition for spots, like you said, Andy, has become more demanding. There's more healthy competition. Now, Jeff, some background on us, because I know that you haven't listened to all 104 of our podcasts since the beginning. So, in fact, I think you first started listening about 15 minutes ago, and we were already 30 minutes into the podcast. So, I think I can speak for Andy, but correct me if I'm wrong, Andy. We're not a podcast that like has a stance on Arsene Wenger or an agenda or this official kind of here's what we feel, and we're going to tailor all of our opinions to fit that agenda type of thing. We both have had a ton of wonderful things to say about him, admirable things to say about him, concern for his legacy and for how disrespected he was being for our own supporters over the last few years. However, I don't think that there's any question that both of us, since we started doing this podcast, have felt that, the time was here to go a different direction, and that we and Arsene were not doing themselves any favors by continuing along the same path. So we had opinions, but they weren't based out of agenda, I don't think, just kind of our opinion. Now, you've been fairly high profile about your support for Arsene Wenger and on Twitter and other areas, and full respect to you and to others that do that without tearing other people down or using it as a battering ram of their own to insult people who don't feel the same way. But you've certainly shown your cards on how you feel about them. Yeah. So I can't think of a better way of asking you about that than to use Czech's comments. Now, I don't think he meant any disrespect either towards Arsene Wenger, and he has no reason to bash him. No. But to me, it's hard to not look at those comments and just be struck by the contrast that he's laying out there between Wenger and Emery. So, I mean, just open book. What do you think about those comments?
Exactly what it is. The regime and the style of play was different. You've got to remember, Arsene always admitted that he's not interested in really defending. He wants everyone to go into the game thinking that they can score more than the opposition. And at the same time, he'll try and build a defence where don't concede too many, and then you get, great teams out of it, like what he did with the Invincibles and the people are forgetting the finals and the semi-finals and when we pipped at the post in league championships as well. He should have won a lot more when he was at Arsenal, but I don't think he was having a pop at Arsene. He's just saying the regime and the style of play was different in them days. Arsene, there is no compromise with him. He will try and build a team that will go out there, firstly, to entertain, secondly, to score more goals than the opposition, and try and obviously win trophies at the same time, doing it the right way, the way he wants to play. And there is I can see, it has, where we're building from the back, it is a little bit different. It's a little bit more laborious where we are trying to bring teams onto us nowadays. And it is, we're not all out just attack. It's clear that Emery is trying to address the situation, defensively. And you know what? And I think he's right. I've said it for maybe the last 2 or 3 seasons myself that there are games where you can't just try and outscore teams, especially with, again, the personnel. Arsene, in my opinion, did have the right personnel in his early days at Arsenal. He inherited, of course, the brilliant back five that we had from the George Graham days, and he built upon that and give them another 2-3 years each. And as you're getting older, you appreciate the game more. Them boys that was there at the time, they really bought into it, and they got another 2 or 3 years out of the game, and they played their best football that they ever played under Arsene Wenger, believe it or not, and got a lot of success for it. So, it's just different styles. I definitely don't, it's the press. They need to sell, they need to click, they need to get clickbait and everything else. So, people do pick up on it, but I don't think there's anything in that. I really don't.
Well, and it's nice to hear, I mean, the excitement that you have right now over the new regime and the future of the team. I mean, you've mentioned it earlier in this podcast, is what I do like to hear. I mean, I was long thinking that this change that finally happened, for some people way too late, for some people way too early, was hopefully going to at least bring people's opinions together that, now that we're here, we need to, band together, support the thing, be patient with it, not start griping about everything that's wrong the second that something goes wrong. And I've seen a lot of people who used to kind of be pretty fed up all the time have actually changed their tune on that, but not everybody. So, you know, I do think it's nice for someone who's been such a, you know, ardent supporter of Arsene Wenger and his place in the game to, you know, to be optimistic and excited about the new man as well.
Of course, I mean, everybody thought, as myself and a few of the other guys that was, you know, staunch Arsenal that are active on Twitter. They just thought, you know, I used to get it every single week. It's Arsenal FC, not Arsenal FC. And I'd have to remind them that, listen, mate, Arsene Wenger was still going to school when I was supporting Arsenal. I'll always be Arsenal. It doesn't matter who's in charge. You know, it could be Bugs Bunny in charge of the team, right? I'll still support Arsenal.
Now, there's a movie concept.
Yeah, yeah. And it really doesn't matter. I'll always be Arsenal. And I'm not one for shouting out and get rid of the manager and stuff like that. I do honestly believe that we've got to give this man plenty of time. And unless we fall out of the sky, I would give him the full term, the full 3 years to have a real bash at it, you know, because I don't want to turn into that team, which I think we unfortunately are going to turn into, of churning out managers every 2 and 3 years. I don't really want to, and that's why I did like the continuity of Arsene. It's quite clear that he's still fit enough to manage a football team. Unfortunately, I just think it got too stale. And once you lose a large proportion of the fan base, there's only one thing that's going to happen, and you are eventually going to have to leave the club. And it was sad, but you know what? I welcome it, and I really, really do hope that we fly, and we, you know, Unai Emery really, really has a good go at it, and we at least win some trophies.
I think the word stale is, I mean, it's unpleasant, but I think it's pretty apropos here. I mean, it's not awful. It's not great. It's just stale can be a good coach and good players just not connecting anymore. And when it is stale, you gotta do something about it. You don't want to be eating stale food for 5 years.
I agree.
So, Andy, anything to add to that, or we want to get on to Wednesday?
No. I hope we're not going to be a club that churns managers every 3 to 5 years, and I'm hoping Unai gets a lot longer than that, because, you know, he's doing and saying the right things on and off the pitch, and you know, we're not winning matches where we look worldy like City or Liverpool right now, but we're winning them, and that's all you can ask. So. I'm excited to see what happens, but I know you would add some Gazidis Marcotti stuff.
Yeah, but before doing that, just one more time to compare to Liverpool. And again, I don't mean to keep comparing us to that squad that I've hated for 30 years, but I am intrigued from afar as to what they're doing. And, you know, again, if in 3 more years they've absolutely won fuck all, then you could say it was a failure. But I was surprised to find out that literally after the first season that Jurgen Klopp was there, they re-signed they signed an extension. They loved what he was doing. They finished 8th that season. They were out of Europe altogether, and they renewed the man, and they gave him, you know, gradually, kind of manageably, I think, without a tremendous amount of net spend, added to that team his types of players and got rid of the ones that weren't. And then, you know, in year 4 with the Champions League money, they really went for it. And you know, I hope that Unai Emery turns out to be that kind of coach, and that our management system, which is, I guess, something I'm about to make a reference to, is at least stable enough to give it a chance, because I don't want to turn into Chelsea. I don't want to turn into Everton, even, of replacing your managers every 18 months and using the same retreads that all of them are using. I mean, just shoot me in the head if Alan Pardew is the manager of Arsenal in the next 15 years. Or worse, Big Sam. But, so yeah, on Friday we had a little kind of quick, pop-up pod, and we won't spend a tremendous amount of time talking about the topic, but, if you haven't listened yet, there's about a 35-minute podcast on our YouTube and iTunes channel with my buddy Gab Marcotti on the Ivan Gazidis News. I just thought he'd be a good person to talk to, because he's got a lot of insights on Milan and the Italian game, on the business side of Premier League football. So it's up. You can listen to it. And he really did have some good insight on kind of what he thinks the background was and how he thinks it'll turn out. Just real quick, Jeff, are you at all arsed about Gazidis leaving, or is it just another piece of news on another day and not that big of a deal to you?
No, it's not big of a deal. Look, it's difficult because his stats or what he's produced looks very, very good. Obviously with the money and everything else, but it was in the midst of the Premier League revenue going crazy. So we really don't know. The laymen in the street really don't know what's going on at Arsenal. They don't know, the financial sides of it that too much. They're not really interested in it too much. We just want to see the boys doing the business on the pitch, and that's really all that we're interested in. So I just think you might as well just let him go, let him slide away, and we'll see what these new guys are up to. Hopefully, we can generate a little bit more money where we can get some top players in, but it's going to be very difficult because no matter how much you plough into it, you've got other teams that are ploughing a lot more into it. So we've got a really, really big task to get up there with to get into win a Premier League or a Champions League. Really we have.
Excellent. So we've got about 15 minutes for some user questions, listener questions that have been submitted that will prompt some good conversation, I think. And I want to start with the one that I mentioned before, because it just struck me as a really, really good question in light of the last 4 performances. From Jack Armstrong, our first half seems to be much worse than our second half, regardless of opponent, lineup, formation. Is this Emery having a hard time figuring out our best 11? Is it down to our players having a hard time vis-a-vis confidence? Or is there just something missing talent-wise? Jeff,
I just think, I think it's a bit of each of them. I think, obviously, Emery, he still don't know. I'm not sure he knows his best 11, but, he's picking from a squad that, they're not really his players. He's got a great big base of a squad that was left by Arsene. And unfortunately, because of the circumstances of how much money we've had over the last 10 years, we'd say, some of these players that Arsene bought I'm being told that Arsene didn't even buy for the last 2 years, really. There was other people that was picking the choices, the players for him. And he was just obviously picking them with team selection and stuff like that and coaching them. But, it's a part of all 3 of those. It's going to take time. I've said that I'm going to get into 10 games before I start really judging them, because when you get 10 games under your belt, 10 league games, get 10 league games under your belt, then you should really have a better picture of the style of play that he's playing and how the players have adapted to it and which ones have adapted and which ones haven't. So
10 is the perfect number. You know who the 11th game is against, Jeff?
I don't know.
Liverpool.
Liverpool. I would hazard a guess Liverpool. But you've got to credit them. That was maybe the world's best team that I saw when I was growing up. Liverpool went through the 70s and 80s. They was a mental, brilliant team. And obviously they've come back to it now. But, and to be honest with you, Liverpool are most probably, right at the top of their game at the moment and maybe playing the best football in the world at the moment. But like you said, Mike, they've won fuck all yet, mate. And they've won nothing under Klopp. And under Arsene, when we was having traumatic times, he still won 3 FA Cups in 4 or 5 years, which is a big, big thing, trust me.
Yeah, it sure is. Andy, is it these 3 things, or is he just unbelievable in his halftime team talk?
I was going to say, for me, it highlights his ability to tactically change the match at halftime. And he's obviously going in and picking out the moments of weakness and saying to players, let's change and do this, that, and the other. He's made changes at halftime with our personnel on the field, which we've never seen before. So, as Jeff said, you got to give him 10. I'm going to say 10 to 15 matches before we really get flowing. And I think it just highlights how good he is tactically at halftime to make those subtle changes to allow us to be a better team. And we'll see what happens, But, I don't think we start off as poorly in the first half if we're playing a bigger opposition. But that being said, I think City is just on a different level. And then against Chelsea, we were switched off, but still too early days. So, it's going to be exciting to see what happens.
Take that much from those games. I mean, I am truly fascinated, and I will be fortunate enough to be in attendance at the Liverpool game. And I just, I will be fine if we lose because they are a better team further along than we are right now, and it'll again be another teaching moment. I'd love if we get a result out of that game. I'm going to be fascinated by the performance that we put out because the players are going to have to recognize that as opposed to the previous week's game, which is I think there's Palace away and there's Leicester away with a Carabao Leicester home with a Carabao Cup and possibly and a game in Lisbon in between. So, I mean, they're going to have to all of a sudden recognize the step up in level, and it will be interesting to see whether they do that or not.
I think that will be the first game coming in on you. Sorry to cut across you. I think that will be the first game you'll see a difference in Arsenal this season than it was under Arsene Wenger. I think Unai Emery will definitely change the setup with regard to he'll do a lot more defensive work, and you'll see as Arsenal coming out looking to just contain Liverpool and then maybe get something later on. I don't think like Arsene, you just send them out there. No, you go and you try and express yourself and outscore Liverpool. Whereas this, if we did that this season, I think that would be crazy. But I think that is the first game where you'll see a different Arsenal from Arsene Wenger's teams.
And I think it'll be welcome. But I hope you're right. From Ryan Cost, everyone says we need a winger on the team. It's that special everyone that Donald Trump likes to talk about. Everyone's saying we need a winger on the team, but that would mean Ozil, Ramsey, or Aubameyang will be dropped. Does that make sense for the team, Jeff?
Listen, wingers are a top winger. They're very rare nowadays. Back in the day, you could go and get a good winger, but they should go and find one. I do think. A winger would give us a natural winger would give us better width. I'm not talking about a left fullback that's been converted into. We need a proper winger that's played there for 10 years or something like that. From school days right the way through maybe. And he's natural in that position. And I do think we have. Even the last 5 or 6 years under Arsene Wenger, we've suffered where we haven't got a proper natural winger, and I'm not including Theo Walcott because unfortunately Theo had a confidence crisis and he couldn't. He'd get the ball down. He'd rather pass it back than have a go at a defender. So yeah, I would love to see a good winger over there, but they're rare to find nowadays.
I've been salivating for years over Douglas Costa, and apparently he's now salivating all over other people. I don't know that. I mean. Would you sign a guy that did that? Like if you were thinking, oh God, if he became available in January, I would love to have him with all the talent in the world, but you knew that it's a guy that stood 2 feet away from somebody and spit like an entire mouthful of saliva into his face. I mean, would that be a disqualifier for you?
I just don't think it's an Arsenal type of signing. Obviously, given the history of it, but personally, I like Douglas Costa, and I would. If you listen, man, if he wins us the Premier League or the European Cup, I'm sure to worry about that situation that went on when he weren't with Arsenal Football Club.
Yeah, that is true. We did apparently try to sign Luis Suarez. He probably did something worse. Andy, what do you think about the winger situation?
Yeah, like Jeff said, unless you're going to get a worldie who comes in. I'm not sure that we really need someone in that position right now. I'd rather we reinforce our defense. So that's my answer. I'm sticking to it.
Tokyo Gooner. This is a very international flair of our questions today. Tokyo Gooner.
Welcome to America as well. He's currently in Nashville.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, or maybe it was Memphis. He's in Tennessee somewhere.
Oh, I did not know that. Hello, guys. He says, would you like to extend the contracts of Welbeck, Cech, and Monreal? Andy, we'll start with you.
Monreal, 100%, as Jeff said. I think
6-year extension?
Yeah, I think he's been our best player in the last few seasons. Cech, it's an interesting one.
Does he have a contract after this season?
Yes, and I think if we extend it with that thought of, hey, we're going to make a switch. If Leno is going to be our number one, and he's comfortable with that, I think Leno can learn a lot from Czech. And then Welbeck's a weird one. I think when he tries hard when he comes in. He's been fit for the most part. I love having an English player on Arsenal. And, we're kind of seeing him score goals. So, yeah, I would say yes to all three. I don't want to pay Welbeck and Czech, ridiculous amounts. But if they're good squad players, then, yeah, I'll extend them.
So you're like the Oprah Winfrey then of contracts.
Yeah.
You get a contract. Jeff, what do you think about those three specifically?
Yeah, you know what? Those three players that you've mentioned, if they leave Arsenal, they're not going to go to a club bigger than Arsenal, are they? So that as long as we can, work out their pay, maybe they'll take a little bit less for their next contract. With regard to Monreal and Czech, obviously they're going over the hills, so to speak. With age and stuff like that. So this is maybe their last decent contract. I would keep them because both of them are really, really great around the training ground. They've both got vast experience. Monreal I'll definitely keep anyway because I think he's still a capable footballer. Petr Cech, he's still a great goalkeeper. Listen, he's the way he started off. He's been brilliant, and goalkeepers can play as long as they keep themselves fit. They can play on for a long time, and he could become even a coach afterwards. Because he's got great experience. And Danny Welbeck, I would definitely give him a contract. I like him. You need players like that. You need players that can come in. And he makes himself busy over the pitch. He will get you goals. He's not the natural goal scorer that we want, obviously, because you wouldn't have paid £20 million for him if he was a natural goal scorer. It would have cost you £50 or £60 million at the time. But you know what? You do need squad players like Danny Welbeck, and he's another lad that's really, really good around the training pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would extend Monreal. Until we have someone again, like when he took over or came in to challenge Gibbs, we have someone who hopefully, once healthy, which I think is almost here, can be his heir apparent in Kolasinac. Whether he will be or not, we don't know. Maitland-Niles could also do a job there, but that's not where he wants to play long term. But my point is, even though at the moment we don't because of injury, we do have some cover there. And so, if we re-sign him for another season, to where he's 34, 35 and his play starts to drop off, I don't think we're going to be up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. So, I would re-sign him just because, he's been one of our leaders on the pitch with getting results. Czech, it's kind of like the year that where Courtois, not that Leno is what Courtois was supposed to be. I can never pronounce it or pronounce it. But he played under Czech, kind of knowing, or was loaned out, knowing that he would be the heir apparent. And then they played there 1 year together and kind of, had a transition. Or Szczesny, who played under Buffon last year, knew he would take over. I think he's valuable enough to keep here for another season. I'm not sure I would have said that over the summer, but I certainly don't think going into next season with Leno and Martinez, if that's the plan, is something I would feel comfortable with. So I would much rather have it be Czech, and I don't see them bringing in yet somebody else from outside. Welbeck, I'd be all right letting go. It depends on what they're keeping us from doing, like re-signing Theo Walcott, to keep picking on him. It was not even so much about how poor he was on the pitch and how much we were paying him. It's what it kept us from doing as an alternative to him. The fact that there was this loyalty and requirement that he just be in the starting 11 all the time, and be re-signed every time his contract came up. And it just, that's the part that gets to me is, what could we have done? Who would we have bought? Who would we have promoted through the ranks if we hadn't done that? And I kind of see that being the case with Welbeck. I think we've seen the best out of Welbeck that he has, and it's good enough for Europa League starts and late game appearances in the Premier League. But I kind of think that's about it. So if I had to say goodbye to any of those three, it would probably be Welbeck. But that's just me. Jonas from Belgium, continuing the international flair. seeing all options we have in midfield, is Ramsey still worthy of a contract renewal? Here we go with the Ramsey question. Jeff, on a scale of 1 to Jason Davies, where do you stand on Aaron Ramsey?
You know what? I'm done with Aaron now. I'm sorry.
Tune into the next Bergkamp Wonderland. Where,
but I watch football. You know what?
With his play or with the contract stuff?
Well, just with everything. I'm tired. I think he's going to see his contract out. I think that's the way football's going now, that players are going to see their contracts out and they move on for a great big payday for 2 or 3 years at the next club. And I think that is the way world football is going nowadays. But Ramsey, to be honest with you, he's another one that I can't see him ever being in an Arsenal team that wins the Premier League. I just don't see it. And I know he's helped us win cup finals and stuff like that. But I just think we need something better than Aaron Ramsey. We need a player that's going to give us, especially in that position where he's being employed, we need a player that's going to give us an 8.5 every single time he laces his boots up. And from him and Mesut Ozil, we're not getting that currently. And successful teams always have that 1 or 2 players that can change a game. And we're not getting the best out of those 2 players. And Aaron Ramsey is one that I want to replace him with a better player.
And do you go so far as to sell him in January for whatever? I mean, recent history shows as much of 30 or 35 million could be done for a Alexis type of player. But let's say it's 20 or 25. Do you sell him?
I would definitely sell him. Definitely.
You sell him within the Premier League.
Yeah, if need be, I would sell him to the highest bidder, whoever it is. I don't think. Listen, honestly, I don't think Man City, I don't think Chelsea, I don't think Tottenham, Liverpool, I don't think any of those 4 top teams, Manchester United. I honestly don't think that they're going to be interested in Aaron Ramsey, because I just don't think he's that good a footballer to be in. That's what I just said to you about winning the league. I don't think they're going to improve them teams. So I don't think it will damage us if he goes to a Premier League team.
All right, interesting. Andy, how are you feeling about his contract status at the moment?
Well, as I said last week, I think that we need to re-sign him just because he's been with the club for so long. We've already invested so much money. I don't think him and Ozil can be in the same squad. I would like to see Ramsey fit into Unai's system with Unai's players. It's kind of telling, though, Mike, that they're not rushing to get a contract signed. If Unai really, really, really thought that this, team was going to be built around Ramsey, then it would have been done already. So
I mean, we got to talk to somebody, and not someone who pretends like they know what's going on the inside, but someone who does know whose fault it is. I guess if you're going to say fault, or who is behind the fact that this contract not only isn't done yet, but doesn't really seem to be close to being done.
Yeah.
Is it the team? Is it Ramsey and his henchmen, his agents, or is it just mutual lack of interest until we see where this project is going?
Well, you can do the maths. He's going to want £250,000-300,000 a week at Arsenal Football Club, right? Firstly,
math his way out the door. If that's what
exactly. Firstly, I'd rather send him to Russia in the back of a car, right, and get the insurance money on him rather than pay him $300,000 a week, right? And it's just not viable. Secondly, I think that he's holding out because he knows he can get that $300,000 a week built into going on a free transfer and taking all the transfer fee. That's exactly how they're doing it nowadays.
Yeah, well, and if that's what happens, so be it. I'm starting to get over him the way I was over Alexis. I mean, you don't have to just be a one-away and be throwing straps all over the place in order to get on my downside. You just have to not sign a contract sometimes, and that's all that does it. And that's all that we have for today. Jeff, I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Jeff.
It was a great chat. And how and where can we hear you, find you, listen to you, smell you? I mean, what do we do?
Listen, it's been a great pleasure, boys. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope I get invited to come back on again. I don't know where I'm going to be. You know what? I'm most going to be dancing somewhere, the Ministry of Sound or somewhere this weekend. You're welcome to come down and dance with me, man.
Excellent. Well, I'll look you up when I'm over in a few weeks. I'd love to have a pint with you and
Definitely,
and say hello in person. So thanks again for joining us. You can please, if you listen to us on iTunes, please leave us a review and a rating. If you watch us, most of our podcasts are video, not this one, but you can watch on YouTube. Leave us a thumbs up and subscribe, and you'll always know when our content comes out. And boys, have a good week. We'll talk to you whenever we get through the next couple games. And come on, you Gooners.